Well, we were going to start a message series today on finances. And that's a scary thing to start with, a hurricane impending on you. It's a scary thing to start anytime. But before I get into talking about the series that we're going to do, and basically, I'll tell you this a little bit. The series is titled, I Want My Life Back. I feel like that in this world, in this day and age, our lives have been robbed, if you will, of a lot of joy because of financial difficulties, financial burdens, financial decisions that we make and we sometimes regret. And so I've decided that I want to title it, I Want My Life Back. Now, before I get into the message, I want to talk to you a little bit about what has happened over the last several days. And how many of you have been watching the TV at any point in time to see what is going on with the hurricane? Can you show hands? How many of you feel like you've been educated as a meteorologist, that you might understand a little bit more about a hurricane than you did before? Does anybody feel they're a little more educated? Have you been watching all right, so here's a quiz on hurricane. Does a hurricane get stronger or weaker over water? Why? The fuel for it. What fuels it? The warm water. How many of you have heard that on the TV, that the warm water creates energy for this hurricane to draw from and get stronger? What is the highest category of hurricane that we have in terms of our numbering system? 5. And that's sustained winds of about 160 or 170 miles an hour, and then it drops on down proportionally. What's the difference in a hurricane warning and a hurricane watch? Warning it's coming. Watch is it might come. A little bit later. Watch is keep your eye out for it. Warning, it is there, it is coming. That's the same for a tornado, isn't it? A tornado watch means the conditions are favorable to a tornado coming. A tornado warning means there's one, it's somewhere out there, don't go look for it, bunker down, you know? So there's all these things. And how many of you saw these forecasted models? Did anybody see these? There's all these little lines on there, and there was one time, I don't know how many it was, but it looked like 8 different lines of where this tornado might track. Did you see that like 4 or 5 days ago? Now I don't know if you caught it, but 5 days ago, it looked like it was going to come up the East Coast, didn't it? And there was one little forecast model that I remember seeing that plugged that thing all the way around on the left side of Florida, coming right up on the track it's taking now. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I wish I'd have remembered what model that one was, because the next one's coming, I'm looking at that model, because it seems they're more accurate. We found out that they take these planes and they fly them way above the hurricane to track it from that direction, and then there's some brave individuals who fly into the hurricane and drop these devices down to give us live feedback, if you will, to the meteorologists so they can make their decision. There's all this data and all this information coming in to help us to plan ahead. And because of this, there's evacuation of all of Florida. Because of I won't say the hype, but because of how strong it was going to be, how many people were going to be affected. There's a lot that have moved and gone to safer ground. Now, it's interesting that one of my friends, he's from this area. He and his family left out of here Friday and went to Tifton. And now they came back yesterday from Tifton, because that's the path that it's going to take. And so it's almost, then I want to just say, why don't you just hunker down wherever you are and just, But now some people are going to go, oh, we shouldn't have took all these extremes. We shouldn't have took these drastic measures. But who knows how many lives have been saved because of that? How much property is going to be saved or not as much damage because people prepped their homes and got things ready for this storm. Now, the reason I tell you this is because planning ahead is an important part of what we do with our finances. In my life and in your life, many of us are dealing with situations in our forecast models that we pay no attention to. We pay no attention to some of the forecast models that said, hey, when you spend more money than you make, you're going to have some issues. That when you base your life off what the monthly payment is rather than what the interest amount is and all the other factors that go in that, we have difficulties. When we build our whole life around and we think our identity is based on the money that we have or the prestige that we have or the money and the prestige that we think that it gives us, then we've got issues in our life. It's like we throw out so many things. It's like we plan for so many areas of our life, but finances is one of those areas that we just cut ourselves a lot of slack on so that we can do what we want to do. And that's where I have come to this point of wanting to speak about those financial issues or think about what the scriptures say about these things. So today I want to talk to you about having a plan, planning for it. Financial success, and let me rewind this. I'm not preaching or teaching financial success for you to be wealthy and have this great luxurious life. What I'm saying is that when we are enslaved to debt, and we are not allowed to honor God with our finances because we're serving another God. It might not be that you say, well, I'm not just serving money, but when you're serving debt, debt is another word for an idol. So when you're satisfied or comfortable with a debt level, some of us are more comfortable with it than we should be, then that has become your idol, and it's causing many people in this world to to just not have joy that comes from just being sound in their financial life. And that comes from a lack of planning. Many times we just want it to happen. We just think it will happen. We read enough books and we read enough stories and we listen to enough tapes and things and we start out doing things and then I've listened to Larry Burkett or I've listened to Dave Ramsey or I've taken, but we don't implement these things in our life. Or what we found in my life or in my family's life, we implement them for a period of time and then when the hurricane's gone, we forget about it. And we don't keep the same plans in effect. Remember I was telling you at the beginning of this service how these calling trees that we're setting up, this is new to us. Now many places have done it before, but this is new to us in our congregation. But this emergency calling tree to make sure that we're checking on people. And it says for this hurricane. But we have to quickly look at this plan and say, can this be used for more than just a hurricane? What if there's a flood? What if there's a tornado? What if, I don't know, a plane crashes and comes into a neighborhood? These things have been known to happen. They may be very rare, but they have been known to happen. All these different things is taking this plan or this concept of this calling tree for a hurricane and saying, can we apply this template in a form or fashion in this area of our life? Which is interesting that we never see that with our finances. God calls us to be disciplined with our lives, calls us to listen to the teachings of His Son Jesus Christ, to follow those teachings and the wisdom that is gained through the Scriptures and God's holy Word and apply it to our life to help us to have a more fruitful and healthy spiritual life. Healthy relationships with one another. Have healthy outlook and attitude on things. But when it comes to finances, We struggle with that as much as we struggle with many others. And in many cases, in my mind, we just put it aside and say, God, these things are important. My attitude, my relationships with others, my relationships with you, my spiritual growth. These are important. Whether I'm connected with others, my time with you, these are all important. My actual physical body and my health are important. But my finances, that ain't none of your business. I've heard that as a pastor. It's none of your business what I give. It's none of your business whether I tithe, whether I give, what I offer. It's none of your business. Well, let me explain something to you from this pastor. If I'm your pastor, then all of it's my business. But that doesn't mean I'm nosing in your business. But you can't get ticked off at me to say, how's your spiritual walk with God going? Because you would expect that. But then when I come up and say, well, how's your finances going? Are you honoring God with them? That's none of your business, Pastor. I would say different. Because it's all connected to being a disciple of Jesus Christ. It's all a part. If I come up to you and you come up to me and say, preacher, you look like you put on a few pounds. Looks like you're not living a healthy lifestyle. You have all that right to say that to me out of love to help me get better. Preacher, you look like you're a little lazy. You're not doing what you used to. You're not reading as much. You're not studying as much. You're not, oh, people have a good time with this one with me because I'm a workaholic. Preacher, you're not taking a Sabbath. You're not taking off the time that you need to restore your body. Well, let me tell you something about this preacher. My Sabbath is mowing the yard, and I really feel renewed after I mow the yard. You understand? Now, I rest, and I doubt many of you do this, but when I mow the yard, my wife knows this, the headphones on, I'll listen to 3 books of the Bible or 4, and I'll listen to some things 15 or 20 times because I'm not going to waste that time. It lets me disengage from everything. The fun part about mowing the grass, I can disengage from everybody else. I'm not taking calls. I'm not listening to anything else. It's just me and the Lord. I'm sweating. I sort of get in that, it's like a football player. You start working out. When you start sweating, you get that certain point. You really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. That trip to Augusta the other day, I drove up there and back and I went to Columbia, South Carolina to get a generator. That ride, man, there was only 15 minutes in that 3.5-hour ride. I didn't talk to somebody on the phone up there. Then on the way back, I was listening to books, and I was just consuming it. And I got up there, and I was meeting people. I'm talking to people, Thomas. Now, they're a little bit more crazy up there in Augusta than what I thought they were going to be, especially when they run out of gas at the pumps. But do we honor God with our finances? And my point I'm trying to make is you've got to plan for it. You've got to plan for it. It's not just going to happen. And over the next several weeks, as a church, we're going to try to figure out how we can help you plan for that. How we can help you in your finances. And I'm going to preach today or speak to you today about a particular passage that Jesus gave as a parable in teaching his disciples and a group of people that were with him. In fact, he was not only teaching this, but he was explaining this concept that works for this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. This whole concept, if it works for this hurricane, it'll work for these other things. You tracking with me? It's something that you sort of get in your head. So here's the story. It comes from Matthew 25. It says, at that time, Jesus is speaking, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. Now, I'm not sure what determines whether you're foolish or wise until the end results happen. But he identifies them as foolish and wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise one, however, took oil in the jars along with their lamps, and the bridegroom was a long time in coming. And they all became drowsy, and they fell asleep. So in this culture, in this day, people that were virgins or women were looking for the right guy. Well, you were going to find it at a wedding party. I guess they were wedding crashers, I guess. And so they go to the party and they go to this thing because they know that the eligible bachelors would be following the groom. and that they would be the eligible brides, and they would come and they would get together and they might have some connection, some love connection or something. But if you're not at the banquet or not at the party, then you're going to miss out on a lot of things. Now, Jesus was describing this and saying he's the groom one day coming back for his church, which would be all of us. And he's trying to let them know there's something about being prepared, being ready, making a plan. And so in this story, he talks about this. So they're going to go, and the bridegroom goes off. Maybe, I don't think it's a bachelor party, but he's a long way off. Maybe he had to go to war. Maybe he had to go do something. Maybe he had things to do. And he said, you stay here, and you remain pure till I get back. Now, the virgins were still 10 virgins, which means they disciplined themselves in this particular area of their life. All 10 of them. 10 of them were virgin. That doesn't distinguish them. None of them have went around and messed around or broke their covenant with their future husband. None of them did that. They were prepared and disciplined themselves to hold out for this person that God said would come in the future. So that's not what separates them. What happens is they go out, and the bridegroom is a long time in coming. He might have said, well, I'm going to go, now this is my household. If Dorsey says he's going to go out and run to the store, it's not just a 5-minute run because I'm going to find 8 other things to do on the way. It's going to take me a while. So I don't know. So he comes back, and they go to meet him. We're going to go sit out here and wait at the gate so when he comes in, we're here, we can have a celebration. 5 of them take their lamps, and they take oil, the fuel for it, and 5 don't. Today, that would be like you having 10 flashlights in your house and no batteries. Now, you got them, and you can say, look at these 10 flashlights. Look at here, they're ready to go. But with no batteries, how well do they work? And I would suggest, too, that many of us in our life have 10 Bibles in our house. And they sit there, not being open, not being read, and that's the same as not even having batteries to run them. You have to have eyes to read it. And we're not doing that. So it says that they all were there, and the bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy, and they all fell asleep. Let me tell you, the wise ones and the foolish ones, they all slip. They all are okay with the decisions that they made. Correct? If they weren't, they would be anxious. You know, they'd be, all of them, hey, I'm a virgin, I brought my lamp, got some oil, didn't bring any extra oil, but I'm good. He'll be here. He said he's coming back. He'll be here. These others can't take a chance or wouldn't take a chance. And they brought extra oil. So they all felt comfortable in their decision to that point. Let me tell you, many of us felt comfortable with our decisions and our finances up to a certain point until we get in over our head. It doesn't take but one job loss, one check being deferred for a week, a bad weather situation coming and you can't draw a paycheck, that when you talk about what that monthly amount is that you can pay and afford, that because that debt has this slavery hold on you, then you're unable to function. One flat tire, one car accident, one sickness in your family, and all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I wish I would have been prepared or planned. But we all go to sleep. We all say our prayers and hope it's going to be all right in the morning. At midnight, the cry rang out. Here's the bridegroom. Come out to meet him. All the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. We're all in the same place. We're all virgins. We're all done this. But here begins to be what separates us. The foolish one said to the wise, give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out. In other words, my light that's in me, my light that guides me, is not going to keep going if I don't have fuel for it. Many people in this world and in this room are going off residual passages of scriptures, the past blessings of God. And they think that it'll just carry on with them doing nothing on their part. I bought the Bible. I read it one time. I read at least one passage in it. I went to Bible study one time. I came to church one time this year. It was Easter. I came and did these things periodically, but it's not enough fuel to keep you going. The very light that you have that keeps you going when times stretch out a little longer than what you think. That's why when this hurricane, they tell you to have a supply of food. They don't say it's going to take about one day, 36 hours to pass through just to have enough food for that day. They're telling you to have enough in case the power goes out. In case you're in an area that might go 5 days without it. They tell you that, remember, the people got all the water and all the water's off the shelves. Well, I got water. The water runs. Well, when the power goes out, the pumps stop. Unless the generators turn on, you don't have water. You can't flush the toilets. That's one thing. You deal with that. You go outside. And even though the sun, because let me tell you, after this hurricane passes, the sun's going to come out and everything's going to look pretty. And if you still don't have power, you can't function. And it's not about how you look and how much water you have to flush your toilet or how much water you have to wash your face. It's about, I don't have any to drink. In some of these flood areas, the water gets contaminated, and it gets contaminated with oil and other things that's out of the sewage or whatever, and it contaminates. You can't drink any. You can't walk in it. You're surrounded by water, and it's not even healthy for you. At midnight, the cry rang out, and the bridegroom come and out to meet him. And then all the virgins woke up. They trimmed their lamps. The foolish one said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there will not be enough for both of us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourself." So the thing is, there was people to help. There was an oil salesman. They chose not to do it. They had the money to do it. Because what happens next? "But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived." They had the resources, the capacity, and everything to do that ahead of time. They chose not to. They chose to wait another day. They chose to wait or try to anticipate what's going to happen. I think that hurricane's going to go this way. I'm not going to evacuate. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. Well, they got the light. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." "What do you mean I don't know you? I was one of the 10 virgins." "Yeah, but my children hear my teachings, and they try to live by them." You see, my true children aren't those that just hear it and do what they want to do. They have tension in their life. They struggle. They figure out how we have to do this because this is going to honor you. So here's a couple of things that I want to put into your head about your finances to start out this season. Number one, think and plan ahead. You have to think ahead. You have to plan ahead. They all look the same, but only some thought ahead. Only some considered their possibility he might be late in coming. Only some consider the possibility we might be without power. Now, I'm not saying for everybody to run and go get generators and all those things. But I can tell you right now, my car, and all of this I don't need. Yesterday in my preparation, by the way, this is ingrained in me. I'm an Eagle Scout. 3 palms. Our motto, be prepared. I don't know any way to live other than that because it was a part of my life. My family ingrained this. Be prepared. We're Atkinsons. If it could happen, it'll happen to us. If bad things, if crap will happen in this world, you watch it, it's going to happen to us. Be ready. Just be ready. It's just a matter of time. So we're always looking like this because it's coming. So I go out yesterday and I'm laying out. I got one tub laying out cords and electrical things and batteries and all those things and put them out on the cement laying out there. And I go over here and here's the tools that I'll need to maybe help somebody else. So here's my chainsaw, my other things. I start them up, except for my new one because I'm hoping it's going to start still in the box. I just like it looking in the box. So I got all that sitting over there ready to go. I have gloves, stuff. I'm trying to think, what would I need? What have I ever need in cutting this down? What would I need to be safe? What would I need? I need a change of clothes. All that stuff's packed and it's in my car now. Not because it's happening yesterday or today, but because this frees me up to help others today. Because I don't have to worry about that. What would happen if your finances were in a better shape than what they are now, that you could be generous and help others because you have prepared prior to the disaster, prior to the event. Many of us are going to be dependent on so many others because we didn't plan ahead. And therefore, we can't be generous and we can't help others. So we need to plan ahead. The next one is get wise advice. People can give you advice, but you need to talk to the people who've weathered the storm. Some of the things that they used to say about the people coming out of depression, how tight they were and everything, but they had some truth about them because they lived through that. They lived when an economy just tanked. And what you thought was money and what you thought was real and what you lived on was gone. Let me tell you, it wouldn't take many days if our internet lifestyles went away. Are you prepared to live without internet? Are you prepared if your whole job and your whole marketing and everything is based on that, if it was to go down for any length of time, it will affect you. So we got to get wise advice from people who know, who've been there, who've experienced this. Now, I'm not saying the doomsday people, but you've got to have some sense about yourself. The next one is we need to plan carefully and deliberately, not in haste. By doing things ahead of time, by planning ahead, when you're working with your finances, have a plan, then work the plan. Get some advice on your plan, like if I want to be able, say many of us in this room today may not be able to tithe. Then what's your next step toward tithing? Your next step toward tithing, I say this in our membership class, if there's $100 as your tithe and you're giving $0, there's actually $10 increments that you could make to get there. There's a step, there's a process. Have a plan. It's very difficult to get from 0 to 10 or to 100 without some intermediate steps. Have a plan. Be aware of that. What am I going to have to do? How can I accomplish that? So we got to plan carefully and deliberately. And then we have to execute that plan. And work the plan. And work the plan. Then we adjust the plan. Then we work the plan. And the next one and the final one is submit and commit your plan to God's glory. This whole story was like the kingdom of heaven is like this banquet. And God is coming back for his church. I'm coming back for my church. So why would you be ready? So I could be with God. Why would you work so hard with your finances? So you could honor God with them. How many of you, and you don't have to show your hands, but I'll hold mine up. How many of you have ever felt guilty at any point in time or convicted at any point in time because you were unable to give, but you felt like you needed to give? I've been there. And then I've been there where I'm struggling with the trust issues with God right now in my life, trying to trust him to say, I've only got 10 and you want me to give all 10 away? And so I'm working off those passages that says, yeah, if you give those 10 away, just worry about today. I'll take care of you tomorrow. Do you really believe that? If you do, start walking that. But I'm not asking you to do that. What I'm asking you to do is work on your plan of where you want to be in the future of your finances. Maybe you want to cut out 10% of your, maybe you want to cut out 10% of your debt, cut out some percentage of your debt. What is your steps and what is your plans to do that? So this is your challenge for this week. To take this message in the midst of the chaos that's going on in your life. You're going to have some downtime over the next 24 to 36 hours. Possibly when the power goes off, you'll have some downtime. But when you do, be thinking about, where do I want to be in my life with my finances? Where do I want God, or where do I think God wants me to be? See, this part about submitting and committing your plans to God's glory is about the why. Your why should always motivate what and how you do things. See, I want to honor God by what I do and how I do it, especially with my finances. And that's my why. So today I hope that this kickoff message is given to a few because we only have one campus today, but I'm thankful for you being here. I hope it's a start for you to begin to think about where do we want to be and where do we want to go with our finances that will help honor God. Because in order to do that, I'm going to have to plan for it. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this time to be here. We thank you for the gift of your grace and mercy. Now, Lord, I know a lot of us are weary and tired and all of the things that are going on. And Lord, I know that this message has meat on it. But Lord, there's so many things that's robbing us from that meat. So Lord, I'm just going to pray that you would let these words hit the ears that need to hear it. Penetrate to the hearts that need to feel it. And stir inside of each one of us, hopefully, a desire to improve our financial situations in our lives as a way not to get more wealthy, but to be able to honor you with all that we have. Because being a slave to debt doesn't honor you in the least. I ask all of this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.